So the first presidential debate in this 2024 election, US election campaign has just concluded with President Joseph Biden going up against former President Donald Trump. And all that anyone can seem to talk about is President Biden's shambolic performance during this debate. His voice was failing him. He oftentimes lost his train of thought, couldn't finish his points, couldn't land his talking points quite effectively as compared to Donald Trump, who seemed really very forceful, very much in command. And this was really a moment where President Biden needed to step up, needed to reassert his control over the narrative that he is essentially too old to hold office. Remember, he's 81 years old, the oldest ever president to have ever held office in the United States. And he needed this moment because over the last couple of months, there have been videos on social media showing the president is frail, is weak, as needing support and guidance to just carry out day-to-day activities. He's really seemed increasingly frail over the last couple of weeks and months. And this was his big moment to change that narrative. He did not, unfortunately, seize the opportunity. Here's just one clip from that debate that sort of encapsulates his entire problem during this first debate with Trump.
The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges, I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack.
And this performance, I think, is such a is so different from just all of Biden's public career and life so far in politics. Remember that he became a senator at just 29 years old in 1972, really shot to prominence in national politics. And he's always been a very powerful, very, very effective speaker. And to see him in this state, I think must be quite a shock for a large number of observers of US politics. Just to compare what Biden was today to what he used to be, here's just one clip from his 1988 campaign for president. This was the first time he'd ever run for the presidency of the United States.
And where did you place in that class? And the other question is, could you quickly, I think
I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. In the first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom two-thirds of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
If I could say one thing, I think just in my own opinion, I'm not questioning your IQ at all. I'm just saying that with the people that we have elected to office in recent years, I think that we have to question their credentials very solidly.
And when you look at this debate compared to other public debates that Biden has been in, remember that he was President Obama's vice president in 2008, and in 2012 he had to go through some very grueling debates during the vice presidential debates that also take place during these election campaigns. And even just 10 or 15 years ago, Biden was still a really, really sharp debater, really, really strong at making his points. Here's one debate clip from his debate with the Republican candidate for the 2000 elections for the vice presidency, Sarah Palin. This was right after the financial crisis, and of course a moment where the country needed strong leadership. And this was his debate performance.
You both would like to be vice president. Senator Biden, how, as vice president, would you work to shrink this gap of polarization which has sprung up in Washington, which you both have spoken about here tonight?
Well, that's what I've done my whole career, Gwen, on very, very controversial issues, from dealing with violence against women to putting 100,000 police officers in the street to trying to get something done about the genocide that was going on in Bosnia and I have been able to reach across the aisle. I think it's fair to say that I have almost as many friends in the Republican side of the aisle as I do the Democratic side of the aisle. But am I able to respond to, are we able to stay on the on
You
the
may,
top?
if you like.
Yeah, well, you know, until 2 weeks ago, it was 2 Mondays ago, John McCain said at 9 o'clock in the morning that the fundamentals of the economy were strong. 2 weeks before that, he said, George, we've made great economic progress under George Bush's policies. 9 o'clock, the economy was strong. 11 o'clock, that's...
These two clips, one from 1988 and the other from 2008, just shows the massive difference in terms of Biden's ability to communicate and his ability to make his point forcefully, which was really something that underwrote his rise to US politics. Remember that he was in the Senate for 36 years, vice president for 8 years. He's someone who's been in politics for 50 years. And just to reinforce the point that we're trying to make in terms of the comparison between what Biden used to be and what he seems to be now, here's just us playing that clip again from the beginning of this video, that one clip from this presidential debate that ended today that really seems to have sealed Biden's fate as a presidential candidate.
While black unemployment dropped to a record low.
The idea that they're going to, I've been proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%, 1%. So no one after, I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges, I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack.
And that change, more than anything, in terms of his performance, in terms of his ability to project power, to project authority, has really raised a number of concerns about whether Joe Biden should remain in this campaign as a Democratic nominee for president. Lots of conversations now about whether he will step down and make way for another candidate who is more able to win the confidence of the country, more able to project power and project leadership and authority. At this point in time, President Biden's campaign, in real difficult straits, you look across the board and it seems very, very clear that by 2/3 margins, or sometimes more solid margins even than that, people believe President Trump has won this first presidential debate and in all likelihood has strengthened his claim to being the most effective candidate to run the country after the November polls. President Biden will have to do a great deal of soul searching, especially after this first debate performance. But really, what we've shown, or at least we've tried to demonstrate to you, is it's not just about debate performance. It may seem that President Biden, after a long half-century in politics, may be nearing the end of his political career and his ability to communicate effectively. Thanks for watching India Today Global. We'll continue to bring you the latest updates from the US elections.